Everyone talks about how to stay social, how to go out more, how to keep up with the world, but nobody talks about what it means when being around people quietly drains you, and home is the only place you finally feel like yourself again. Welcome to Decode His Mind, where we explore the hidden psychology behind emotions, behavior, and the way we experience relationships and the world around us. In today's topic, we're diving into why some people feel deeply drained by social environments, why solitude feels so necessary for them, and what it really means to be highly sensitive in a world that never slows down. So you cancel. And instead of feeling bad about it, you feel relief. Not because you don't care about people, but because being around them drains something out of you that you can't even properly explain. And home is where your mind finally slows down, where everything inside you gets a little quieter. Most people don't really understand that. They might call it isolation. They might assume something is wrong. But for someone who is highly sensitive or deeply empathetic, staying home isn't about avoiding life. It's about recovering from it. There's even a deeper truth many people overlook. Scripture says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness has always been tied to restoration. If this feels like you've probably already noticed something about yourself. You don't just get tired from doing things, you get tired from feeling everything. And when you're finally alone, something inside you resets. Before we go deeper, stay with this, because what you're about to understand might completely change how you see yourself. And if this resonates, you'll know you're not alone in this experience. There's a very specific moment that empaths or highly sensitive people experience almost every day. You come back home after being out in the world. Maybe it was work, maybe just errands. Maybe a simple conversation that lasted too long. And the second you close the door behind you, something shifts in your body. Your shoulders drop without you thinking. Your jaw relaxes. Your breathing slows down, like your system finally got permission to rest. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels automatic, like your entire body was waiting for that moment just to exhale. And in that silence, you realize something important. Most people would just call it being tired or introverted. But that explanation doesn't fully capture what's really happening, because what's actually going on runs deeper than personality. It's about how your nervous system processes the world. People like you often have heightened sensitivity in the brain systems that mirror emotions. These are the parts of the brain that pick up on what others feel, even when nothing is said out loud. In most people, this system helps with basic empathy and social awareness. But in highly sensitive individuals, it works on a much stronger level. So when you walk into a room full of stress, tension, or emotional heaviness, you don't just observe it. Your system responds to it. It reacts as if it's partly yours. That's why being in the outside world can feel so draining. Not because you're weak, but because you're processing far more emotional information than most people realize exists. Every interaction leaves something behind. A tone, a mood, a tension, a feeling someone didn't even say out loud. And without realizing it, you carry pieces of that with you. By the time you get home, you're not just tired from what you did, you're tired from everything you absorbed. That's why your home feels so different. It's not just comfort, it's neutrality. Nothing in your home is emotionally demanding you. The walls aren't stressed. The air isn't anxious. There's no pressure to respond, to read, to adjust, to hold space for anyone else. So your nervous system finally stops performing. And what many people don't realize is that this isn't a personality flaw. It's actually how your system regulates itself. But because society often praises constant social energy, people who need solitude start feeling like something is wrong with them. They push themselves. They force themselves to go out more. They ignore what their body is clearly trying to tell them. And slowly, guilt starts forming around something that is actually natural for them. But the truth is simple. Staying home isn't failure. It's regulation. It's your system protecting itself from overload. When you understand that, everything starts to make more sense. You stop fighting your nature and start working with it instead. Think about the last time you were around someone who was stressed or emotionally overwhelmed. Even if they tried to hide it, you probably felt it anyway. You didn't need them to say a word. You could sense it in their tone, their energy, their presence. And when you left that interaction, you might have noticed something strange. That heaviness stayed with you, even though it was never actually yours. That experience is very common for deeply empathetic people. What science calls emotional contagion is part of how humans connect. We naturally pick up on each other's emotional states through subtle signals like expressions, tone, and body language. Everyone experiences it. But in highly sensitive people, it goes much deeper. You don't just notice someone's emotion. You feel it inside your own system. If someone is anxious, your body can start to feel anxious too. If someone is sad, you might feel a quiet heaviness that wasn't there before. And the most important part is, it happens automatically. You don't choose it. You don't decide to take it on. It just happens in real time. Over time, this can become exhausting because you start carrying emotional weight that was never yours to begin with. And when that builds up throughout the day, solitude becomes essential. Because when you are finally alone, something important happens. Your system starts separating what belongs to you from what doesn't. It's like your mind slowly unclenches, like you're putting things back where they belong emotionally. You begin to realize this feeling isn't mine. This tension wasn't mine. This heaviness came from somewhere else. And in that process, you return to yourself. But when someone doesn't get enough solitude, that separation never fully happens. Everything blends together. Their own emotions and other people's emotions start to feel like one continuous experience. That's when people say things like, I don't even know how I feel anymore. Or my mood depends on who I was around today. It's not confusion, it's overload. Solitude resets that. It clears the emotional noise so your real self can come back into focus again. Without it, you slowly lose track of your internal state. Not permanently, but temporarily drowned out by everything you've absorbed. And that's why some people don't just feel tired after social interaction. They feel mentally scattered, emotionally full, and disconnected from themselves. Rest alone doesn't fix that. Only quiet space does. There's also a type of exhaustion that most empaths recognize deeply but struggle to explain. It's not physical tiredness, it's not sleep deprivation, it's overstimulation. Too many voices, too many emotions, too much input, too many subtle signals your brain has to process at once. And modern life only amplifies it. Noise, screens, conversations, constant stimulation everywhere. For a highly sensitive nervous system, it becomes too much, too often. That's why home feels like a reset button. Not because life is being avoided, but because your system finally gets a break from processing everyone else's world. Research has shown that a significant portion of people are naturally more sensitive to sensory and emotional input. This isn't a flaw. It's simply how some nervous systems are built. But what matters most is understanding it. Because once you stop seeing your need for space as weakness and start seeing it as awareness, something changes inside you. You stop forcing yourself into environments that drain you without recovery. You stop feeling guilty for needing quiet, and you start respecting your own limits instead of fighting them. That's where real balance begins, because the goal was never to become less sensitive. The goal is to understand how you function and live in a way that supports it. And when you finally accept that, you stop breaking yourself to fit into a pace that was never designed for you in the first place. If this message speaks to you, you might want to stay connected. This is Decode His Mind, and here we explore the deeper psychology behind emotional patterns, attraction, and self-awareness in ways most people never talk about. And if this helped you understand yourself a little better, subscribe and let me know in the comments with one word how you feel when you're finally alone. The way you notice everyone around you always rushing out, making plans, traveling, meeting people, always needing to be somewhere, and you're just sitting there thinking, I honestly just want to stay home, is something deeper than most people realize. So you cancel plans, and instead of guilt, what shows up is relief. Not because you don't care about others, but because being around people takes something out of you that you can't fully put into words. And when you get home, something inside you softens. Your mind finally stops running at full speed. There's a quiet that doesn't exist anywhere else. A lot of people misunderstand this. They label it as isolation, antisocial behavior, or assume something is wrong. But for a highly sensitive person or an empath, home is not escape, it's recovery. There's a deeper truth behind it too. The idea of stillness being healing has always existed. Be still and know that I am God. Stillness has always been where restoration begins. If this feels familiar, it's because you don't just get tired from what you do, you get tired from what you feel. And the moment you're alone, something in you resets. Before going deeper, understand this might shift how you see yourself completely. Because once it clicks, you stop thinking you're too sensitive and start realizing how your system actually works. There's a moment empaths experience almost every day without even noticing the pattern. You come back home after being out in the world, work, errands, conversations, even short interactions that didn't seem like much at the time. And the second the door closes, your body changes. Your shoulders loosen, your jaw releases tension you didn't know you were holding. Your breathing slows down naturally, like your system finally feels safe enough to relax. It doesn't feel like something you choose. It feels like your body was waiting for permission to stop bracing itself. Most people explain this as simple tiredness or introversion, but that explanation barely scratches the surface. What's actually happening goes deeper into how your nervous system is built. Highly sensitive people tend to have stronger activity in brain systems linked to emotional mirroring. These are the parts of the brain that pick up on other people's emotions, even when nothing is said out loud. In most people, this helps with empathy and social understanding, but in highly sensitive individuals, it operates at a much higher intensity. So when you enter a room filled with stress, tension, or emotional heaviness, your system doesn't just observe it, it reacts to it. You start processing emotions that are not even yours without consciously realizing it. That's why the outside world can feel overwhelming. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is taking in more emotional information than most people ever register. Every interaction leaves an impression, a mood, a tone, a subtle tension, something unspoken. And without realizing it, you carry pieces of it with you. By the time you reach home, you are not only physically tired, you are emotionally overloaded. That's where your home becomes something important. Not just comfort, but emotional neutrality. When you accept that, everything changes. You stop fighting yourself and start understanding yourself. Think about being around someone who is stressed or emotionally overwhelmed. Even if they don't say much, you can feel it. Something in their energy, tone, or presence tells you everything. And when you leave, that feeling sometimes stays with you. even though it was never yours to begin with. This is known as emotional contagion. Humans naturally pick up emotions from each other through subtle cues like expression, voice, and body language. Everyone experiences it, but in highly sensitive people, it goes much deeper. You don't just notice emotions, you absorb them. If someone is anxious, your body can begin to feel that anxiety. If someone is sad, you might feel a heaviness that wasn't there before. And the important part is it happens automatically. You don't choose it, it just happens. Over time, this can become exhausting because you end up carrying emotional weight that doesn't belong to you. That's why solitude becomes essential, because when you are finally alone, something important happens. Your system starts separating what is yours from what you've absorbed. It's like emotional noise slowly fading out. You begin to recognize what you actually feel versus what you picked up from others. Without that space, everything blends together. Your emotions and everyone else's emotions start feeling like one constant stream. That's when people say, I don't even know how I feel anymore. It's not confusion, it's overload. Solitude clears that overload. It gives your system space to reset and return to itself. But there's another layer to this. Modern life is constantly stimulating. Noise, screens, conversations, movement, pressure from every direction. For a sensitive nervous system, it becomes too much too often. That's why home feels like relief. Not because you are avoiding life, but because you are finally stepping out of emotional overload. And research shows that a significant portion of people are naturally more sensitive to sensory and emotional input. This is not a flaw, it is a trait. The key is understanding it correctly. Because once you stop labeling your need for space as weakness and start seeing it as awareness, you begin to move differently in life. You stop forcing yourself into environments that drain you without recovery. You stop apologizing for needing quiet. And you start respecting your limits instead of fighting them.
In the end, being highly sensitive or empathic is not a weakness, it's simply a different way of experiencing the world. Your need for solitude, for home, and for quiet is not about escaping life but about restoring your nervous system after taking in too much from it. When you understand this, you stop seeing yourself as too sensitive and start seeing yourself as self-aware. The real balance is not choosing between people and solitude, but knowing when to step back to recharge and when to step forward to connect. Because your depth is not meant to isolate you, it's meant to be protected, understood, and then brought back into the world with clarity and strength. If this resonated with you, make sure to like the video, subscribe to *** decode his mind ***, and hit the bell icon so you never miss what we uncover next. And in the comments drop the word palm if you relate to this feeling of needing solitude to reset yourself. I read every comment and I want to know your experience too.